North Korea Nampo Waudo Export Processing Zone. 70. Gateway to the Pyongyang-Nampo Economic Corridor, creating the miracle on the Taedong River. North Korean Workers' Party can do a market economy. The Nampo Waudo Export Processing Zone will be capable of handling a port cargo volume of 15 million TEU and generating over $5 billion in annual revenue once the new Nampo Outer Port is constructed, and the Pyongyang-Nampo Economic Corridor is completed following denuclearization and the introduction of a market economy. The Nampo Waudo Export Processing Zone is an economic development zone specialized in export processing designated in the Waudo area of Nampo City, South Pyongan Province. It was established when North Korea designated a large number of regional-level economic development zones in 2013-2014, with the purpose of focusing on export-oriented processing and assembly industries based on its geographical advantage of being adjacent to Nampo Port. Located near North Korea's largest industrial and population hub, Pyongyang-Nampo, this region has the highest potential to grow into a logistics and manufacturing hub for the West Coast industrial belt after denuclearization. Covering an area of approximately 1.8 square kilometers, it is adjacent to Nampo Port and the West Sea Lock, making maritime transportation very convenient. It is connected to Pyongyang by an expressway, facilitating active exchange of people and goods. With the enactment of the North Korean Economic Development Zone Law in 2013, 3 export processing zones were designated in the Nampo area, either simultaneously or sequentially. The goal is to develop the Waudo Export Processing Zone into an export-oriented processing and assembly complex and a comprehensive economic development zone encompassing finance, tourism, real estate, and food processing. The Jindo Export Processing Zone is a bonded processing trade complex that produces and exports machinery, electrical and electronic goods, light industrial products, and chemical products. The plan for the Songnim Export Processing Zone is to develop it into an export processing, warehousing, and cargo transportation complex. Among these, Jindo Export Processing Zone is a key hub granted central-level status and is structured to be operated in functional combination with Waudo Export Processing Zone within virtually the same region. It shares unloading facilities and storage warehouses at Nampo Port and is operated in conjunction with the nearby Jindo Export Processing Zone. As of 2026, consignment processing, trade, and production of light industrial products are mainly carried out on a small scale with China, but large-scale facility investment is stagnant due to sanctions against North Korea. There is an abundance of technical manpower in the metal, machinery, glass, and shipbuilding industries, such as the Cholima Steel Works, so skilled labor can be utilized immediately. Nampo Port is the largest trade port in North Korea, handling 28.9% of North Korea's foreign maritime trade cargo. It has a total of 8 piers with an annual unloading capacity of 7.5 million tons, and mainly handles coal, cement, and general miscellaneous goods. Construction of a dedicated container terminal began in April 2002 and was completed in 2005. The modernization project for Nampo Port was pursued with South Korea but fell through due to the deterioration of inter-Korean relations. Construction of the Seohae Sluice Gate began in May 1981 and was completed in June 1986. The embankment connecting Jinampo and Pido in Yunryul-gun, Hwanghae-do, is 8 kilometers long and is equipped with 3 lock chambers and 36 sluice gates. It raises the water level of the Taedong River to increase the capacity of ships that can pass through Nampo Port from 20,000 tons to 50,000 tons, and performs multi-purpose functions such as supplying agricultural water to the tidal flats on the west coast, securing industrial water for the Nampo Industrial Complex, and flood prevention. However, the West Sea Lock Gate is also Nampo Port's greatest weakness. The fact that it is a lock port itself limits passageability, but with the addition of a land transportation function to the lock, the passage time for ships has been cut in half. Since the construction of the West Sea Lock, the water flow has stagnated, and the sea at Nampo Port freezes for about 80 days every year. To enhance port functions, it is far more efficient to construct a massive outer harbor along the coast and dredge the seabed. Therefore, The most critical infrastructure decision regarding the development of Nampo Port after denuclearization is whether to maintain the West Sea lock system or construct a new outer harbor. Expansion work is continuing at the Nampo Port shipyard capable of building warships. 4 oil tanks have been completed, and groundwork is underway for the installation of 2 additional tanks. North Korean state media reported in December 2024 that new warships, such as destroyers or frigates, are being built in Nampo. This trend of expanding military facilities suggests that the separation of Nampo's military and commercial port functions will be a key agenda item in denuclearization negotiations. In the mid to late 1990s, the Daewoo Group operated a garment factory in the Nampo industrial complex. This project, which began in 1992, 8 years before the Kaesong Industrial Complex, closed in 1998 due to Daewoo's financial difficulties, but it holds historical significance as the first tangible example of inter-Korean manufacturing cooperation. Pyonghwa Motors is an automobile assembly plant located in Nampo, established in 2002 as a joint venture between the Unification Church and North Korea, and produces passenger cars. Although on a small scale, there is a local workforce with experience in manufacturing finished vehicles, ranging from importing parts to assembly and domestic sales. The Nampo Waudo Export Processing Zone held foreign investment attraction briefings around 2014, shortly after its designation. But due to international sanctions and a lack of infrastructure, actual large-scale development hardly took place. While Nampo Port currently functions as a major port on North Korea's west coast, no special foreign investment projects or cases of large-scale factory construction have been confirmed in the Waudo area. The economy is primarily composed of small-scale processing activities centered on domestic companies and trade with China via Nampo Port. There is almost no foreign direct investment, consisting mainly of small-scale Chinese merchants and processing activities. Although the Waudo Export Processing Zone clearly intended to utilize Nampo's port infrastructure, it was evaluated as the economic development zone with the lowest performance due to a lower development priority compared to Rason or Sinwiju. If UN sanctions are eased or lifted following denuclearization, and North Korea pursues a Chinese-style gradual opening by implementing mixed ownership, fostering chaebols, expanding private property, and strengthening special laws for special economic zones, the Nampo Waudo Export Processing Zone is expected to grow significantly as a logistics and processing hub on the West Coast. Nampo Port is the largest port on the West Coast and has a significant geographical advantage due to its proximity to Shandong and Liaoning in China. In the short term, over the next 1 to 3 years, rapid operation is possible through the modernization of Nampo Port and the establishment of a light industry OEM cluster led by Chinese capital, focusing on labor-intensive export processing such as clothing, sewing, footwear, and electronic component assembly. In the intermediate period of 3 to 7 years, large-scale processing industrial complexes linked to the Chinese supply chain for fabrics and parts will expand as specialized export processing complexes are fully operational. In the long term, it will become a key hub of the West Coast economic belt linked to the Nampo-Pyongyang axis, upgrading to high-value-added processing such as electronics and automotive parts, and developing into a comprehensive export base involving capital from South Korea, China, and Russia. Following denuclearization, the Waudo Export Processing Zone is expected to become the West Coast terminal of the global supply chain. If denuclearization progresses, and investment from the international community is permitted, Nampo Waudo will be transformed into an export-oriented complex industrial complex. Investments in advanced assembly and manufacturing will serve as low-cost production bases on the West Coast for Korean and global conglomerates in the assembly of home appliances, automotive parts, and telecommunications equipment. International logistics and distribution investments, including storage warehouses, packaging, and cold chain logistics, will serve as a logistics hub for imports and exports to China and a hinterland logistics base for the Pyongyang metropolitan area. Financial and business investment will become the West Coast financial hub, supporting corporate activities within the special zone, including banks, insurance companies, and legal service centers. Investment in smart agricultural and fisheries processing will serve as a base for exporting high-value added foods, such as West Sea seafood and surrounding agricultural products, to China and other overseas markets. China will emphasize connectivity with cities near the Bohai Bay, such as Dalian and Tianjin, as a center for logistics and processing, and aim to secure port operating rights and the warehousing and logistics industry. In particular, Chinese capital will seek to exercise strong dominance in the assembly and contract manufacturing sector. Korea is pursuing the establishment of the West Coast Joint Economic Zone, connecting the Gyeonggi-Incheon Industrial Complex with Nampo through manufacturing and supply chain integration. It is highly likely that suppliers to major corporations such as Samsung and Hyundai Motor will enter the market in large numbers to lower production costs, leading to competition with Chinese capital. Entry into Hong Kong and Singapore's financial and intermediary trade sectors is also expected. Hong Kong capital, which has previously expressed an intention to invest, will enter by leveraging its expertise in establishing financial systems within the special economic zone and providing intermediary trade services. Let's examine the competitive landscape of participants by industrial investment category in the Nampo Waudo export processing zone following denuclearization. Light industry, textiles, and clothing export processing are the top priority sectors for immediate operation. Current participants, Pyonghwa Motors, a joint venture between the Unification Church and North Korea, is operating on a small scale, and some Chinese contract manufacturing companies exist from prior to sanctions. Competitive entrants after denuclearization. These include South Korean textile OEM specialists such as Youngwon Trading, Hansei Textile, and Sia Trading successor companies to Daewoo partners of global fast fashion suppliers, Zara, H&M, and Nike, and production bases seeking to relocate from Bangladesh and Vietnam. Competitive landscape South Korean textile companies, backed by Daewoo's precedent and the Kaesong Industrial Complex, are the fastest re-entrants. As long as tariffs of 145% or higher are maintained in China, Nampo is an immediate alternative production base that can enjoy the effect of 0% tariffs on direct exports to the US and EU upon acquiring PNTR. The key competitive point is whether the product is recognized as originating from Korea. If Nampo-produced products are recognized as Korean, tariff benefits from the Korea-US FTA and the Korea-EU FTA are applied simultaneously, giving them a decisive price advantage over Bangladesh and Vietnam. This is the electronic component assembly and EMS contract manufacturing business. Current participants currently none. It has been completely blocked due to sanctions. Competitors after denuclearization, South Korea's Samsung Electronics, LG Initech, and Samsung Electromechanics outsourcing of components, Taiwan's Foxconn and ASE Group EMS, and Japan's Murata, TDK, and Yamaha Motor affiliates electronic components. Competitive landscape Jindo Export Processing Zone is officially designated as a bonded processing trade zone for the production and export of machinery, electrical, electronic, light industry, and chemical products, and already has a legal framework optimized for electronic component EMS. The core of the project lies in its function as a West Sea gateway, enabling immediate exports to China, Japan, and South Korea via the Nampo Port container terminal, backed by Pyongyang's science and engineering workforce that overlaps with the talent pool of the Eunjong IT Special Zone. A sequence is expected in which South Korean electronic component companies enter as leading investors, followed by Japanese and Taiwanese companies entering in competition. This is the automotive parts and assembly business. Current participants Pyonghwa Motors is currently conducting small-scale assembly. Competitors entering the market after denuclearization. These include South Korean Hyundai and Kia parts suppliers, Chinese BYD and Geely electric vehicle parts, and German Bosch and Continental automotive parts. Competitive landscape. Utilizing Pyongyang Motor's site and experience to convert into an electric vehicle, parts assembly complex is the most natural upgrade path. As Hyundai and Kia Korea transition to electric vehicles, their suppliers are seeking to diversify their production bases, and Nampo offers excellent speed in supplying parts to Incheon Port, which is 180 nautical miles away via a direct route in the West Sea. China's BYD will be the most active in exploring the Nampo electric vehicle factory, but a monopoly will not be allowed due to U.S. regulations on Chinese electric vehicles and North Korea's multipolar strategy. Port Modernization and Logistics Service Project. Current participants. The North Korean maritime authorities are operating it independently and maintaining intermittent maritime trade with China even under sanctions. Post-denuclearization competitive entrants include South Korea's HMM, Hyundai Glovis, and SM Line China's COSCO, which immediately restored the Dalian-Nampo route, Singapore's PSA International Port Operations, and Germany's Hamburg Süd. Competitive landscape. The modernization of Nampo Port is an agenda that the South Korean government had already pursued during the Roh Moo-hyun administration, but failed to proceed with, and it will be one of the first inter-Korean economic cooperation projects that the South Korean government will resume after denuclearization. However, the construction of an outer harbor to resolve the structural limitations of the West Sea Lock, such as freezing for 80 days a year and restrictions on passage capacity, is the most important initial investment decision. Global port operators such as PSA and DP World are expected to explore large-scale investments through packages involving the construction of new ocean ports and long-term operating rights. Food processing and fisheries businesses. Current participants: the Nampo Seafood Business Office, Nampo Seafood Processing Plant, etc., are operating independently, but production is on a small scale under sanctions. Competitors after denuclearization: South Korean companies CJ Cheil Jadang, Daesang, and Dongwon Group, Chinese seafood processing companies, and Japanese fisheries companies. Competitive landscape food processing is included in the official plan for the Waudo Export Processing Zone, utilizing existing infrastructure such as the Waudo Cooperative Farm and the Nampo Seafood Processing Plant. A model that processes fisheries resources from the West Sea fishing grounds and the Taedong River and exports them to Korea, Japan, and China is immediately possible. CJ Cheil Jadang is the most active candidate for establishing a joint processing plant using Korean food brands. Real Estate and Urban Development Project. Current participants. Some leisure infrastructure exists, such as Waudo Beach and Waudo Resort. Post-denuclearization competitive entrants include South Korea's Hyundai ENC, GS ENC, and POSCO ENC, China's Vanke and Country Garden, and Singapore's Keppel Land. Competitive landscape. With the growth of the Pyongyang-Nampo Economic Corridor, Nampo is highly likely to be developed into a new city with a complex of residential, commercial, and logistics facilities. It is likely that the site adjacent to Waudo Beach will be developed into a tourism, leisure, and hotel complex, and the area around the export processing zone will be developed into a residential complex supporting the industrial complex. Korean construction companies hold an overwhelming advantage in technology and design, while Chinese real estate companies compete with financial strength. North Korea offers various investment incentives. The core incentive is exclusive access to the West Sea Export Gateway. It leverages the geographical exclusivity of being the shortest distance export port in the West Sea, connecting to Dalian in China, Incheon, and Pyeongtaek in South Korea, and ports on Japan's west coast. It provides specific companies with priority usage rights to the container terminal at Nampo Port and exclusive warehouses within the bonded zone. The Pyongyang Manpower Pool Package establishes a system that utilizes Pyongyang's population of 5 million as a supporting labor market. It guarantees a monthly wage of $100 to $150 and the placement of necessary personnel within 2 weeks. The tax benefit package offers a 15-year corporate tax exemption within the export processing zone, a 0% export duty on finished goods, duty-free imports of raw materials, and the liberalization of dividend remittance to the home country. As part of the commitment for upfront investment in power and infrastructure, the improvement of Nampo's power infrastructure by South Korean capital specifically, the connection of LNG power plants or submarine cables will be included in the compensation package for the initial phase of denuclearization, thereby guaranteeing a stable power supply to investors in advance. Among these, a special clause recognizing Nampo-produced products as originating from Korea is included in the Korea-US-Korea-EU trade negotiations as a negotiating card for country of origin recognition. If this is realized, Nampo will be able to export to the U.S. market at a tariff rate more than 100 percentage points lower than that of China, overwhelming all competing alternatives. A plan to pursue interests that are best for North Korea is also necessary. Principle 1. Set the issue of the West Sea floodgate as the first technical agenda item at the negotiation table. The structural limitations of the West Sea floodgate are the biggest bottleneck that diminishes the potential of Nampo Port. The top priority is to secure the costs for constructing a new outer port or improving the West Sea lock from South Korea and the international community as part of an economic assistance package early in the denuclearization agreement. If the costs for constructing the new outer port are raised from the South Korean government or International Development Financial Institutions, ADB, AIIB, World Bank, North Korea can expand its port capacity 2 to 3 times at virtually no cost. Principle 2. Differentiate positioning as the Jindo EMS complex rather than Kaesong Industrial Complex 2. While the Kaesong Industrial Complex was dependent on low-value-added garment manufacturing and reliant on South Korean SMEs, the Nampo Jindo Export Processing Zone must target mid-value-added manufacturing sectors such as electronic components, automotive parts, and EMS from the outset. This approach can attract the interest of not only South Korean companies, but also those from Taiwan, Japan, and global EMS firms, thereby securing opportunities for both investment diversification and technology absorption. Principle 3. Secure the confidence of Western investors through the explicit separation of military and commercial ports. Currently, at Nampo Port, the construction of warships and military facilities is intermingled with commercial container facilities. Following the denuclearization agreement, clearly separating the military port zone from the commercial and export processing zones physically and legally, and accepting international audits and verifications of the commercial zones is the most effective confidence-building measure to accelerate investment decisions by Western companies. Principle 4. Utilize the Incheon-Nampo shipping route as the #1 symbolic project for inter-Korean economic cooperation. The sea distance from Incheon Port to Nampo Port is approximately 180 nautical miles, allowing for a round trip within 18 to 24 hours. Declaring the opening of a regular Incheon-Nampo car ferry route immediately after the denuclearization agreement would make it the most tangible no. One symbolic project for inter-Korean economic cooperation, enabling simultaneous cargo transport, business travel, and tourism. This is the fastest way to create a psychological turning point for post-denuclearization inter-Korean economic cooperation alongside the reopening of the Kaesong Industrial Complex. Principle 5. Develop and market the Pyongyang-Nampo Economic Corridor as a single economic zone. Package Pyongyang's workforce, technical personnel, and consumer market with Nampo's export port and manufacturing bases into a single economic corridor to market to foreign investors. By bundling the triangular ecosystem connecting IT personnel in the Yunjong High-Tech Development Zone in Pyongyang, manufacturing bases in the Jindo Export Processing Zone in Nampo, and the Nampo Port Export Gateway into the Pyongyang-Nampo Economic Corridor investment package, we provide one-stop investment attraction through a single window. Principle 6. We demand that the international community resolve the power issue as a prerequisite. Unlike Chongjin and Rason, Nampo is adjacent to Pyongyang and can share the Pyongyang power grid. However, a stable power supply for large-scale manufacturing requires separate investment. specifying an LNG combined cycle power plant as a key item for economic compensation in the initial stages of denuclearization and procuring it from South Korea's KEPCO and GS Energy is the fastest solution. This is the potential revenue outlook for the Nampo Waudo processing zone after denuclearization. Under a conservative scenario, within 5 years of denuclearization, it is possible to generate $500 to $800 million in annual foreign currency revenue. With the entry of 100 textile and electronic component export processing companies and an annual port cargo volume of 1 million TEU. Under the basic scenario, within 10 years, it is possible to form a complex ecosystem of EMS, automotive parts, and food processing, achieve a port cargo volume of 5 million TEU, and generate $2 to $3 billion in annual foreign currency revenue. Under an optimistic scenario, the construction of a new outer port, the completion of the Pyongyang-Nampo Economic Corridor, the establishment of Asian production bases by Western global companies, a port cargo volume of 15 million TEU, and annual foreign exchange earnings of over $5 billion are possible. Nampo's greatest strength, unlike other North Korean special economic zones, is the existence of already operational port infrastructure, a historical industrial base, and the massive hinterland market and workforce pool of Pyongyang. Between the symbolic significance of the immediate restart of the Kaesong Industrial Complex and Rason's long-term potential as a logistics hub, Nampo is the central axis of North Korea's West Sea economy, capable of providing the most balanced return on investment over an intermediate period of 5 to 15 years. Nampo Waudo is like the bloodline leading to Pyongyang, the heart of the North Korean economy. If this place is successfully opened, it will be a decisive turning point in transforming North Korea's entire industrial structure from resource exports to high-value-added processing exports. Next time, we will talk about the Gyeongdo-Haeju Economic Corridor. Thank you.